Okay. First, I would like to take you on a little journey. So, if I can ask everyone to just close your eyes and try to imagine this. Imagine that you're taken away from your family because of a disease or because of poverty. Imagine that you wake up one day on a street corner. By the looks of strangers passing by you, you realize that this has now become your life. Imagine that you see a man coming towards you. He's offering to help, and you follow him home. Because finally, there is someone who cares, and someone who sees you. Imagine that you get to his house, and then you realize that this man doesn't want you anything good at all. Imagine that you sometime later find yourself in a clinic about to have your first child. Imagine that you are forced to leave the clinic because you are unable to pay for yourself. And imagine that you're only 13 years old. And now you can open your eyes. Midlands Children's Home Project was created in Norway 3 years ago to assist an orphanage for street children in Zimbabwe. And thanks to dedicated and passionate people, both within the organization and outside, we send down every single dollar that we get in straight to Zimbabwe because all the administrative expenses are covered by ourselves or other people involved. And we have a simple motto that we live by: create a better world, one child at a time. And this is pretty much the idea behind everything that we do. And I also believe this is one of the main reasons why we have been successful. By focusing on one child at a time, we see the children as what they are, individual children. And by focusing on the individual, it forces us to think about charity work in a different way. Because by seeing them one by one, it also reminds us that charity work is about so much more than just having a 5-year plan or thinking about an end result. It's also about making the everyday life work for these people and to make a plan as you move along. And we don't only want to assist the people in need, we want to find a way to turn their needs into something sustainable. So we want to find a way to turn social need into social capital.
Yes. So let me just start by taking you back to where this whole adventure started back in 2011. I was 19 years old at the time, and I had just gotten out of high school, and I was thinking, like most people when they're that age, I just wanted to get out there, I wanted to see the world, I wanted to see something more than what was just in my little small town at home. So I went online and I searched for different volunteer experiences out in the world, and I ended up on this program in Zimbabwe. And I knew very little about Zimbabwe before I heard about this program, but I decided that this was something that I wanted to do. A few months later, I was therefore on my plane on my way to Zimbabwe, and I'd done a little bit of research, so I knew that Zimbabwe had gone from being the breadbasket of Africa to becoming a country in great social, political, and economical need, or at least they were facing several problems. They had an unemployment rate of 8%, an infant mortality rate of 56%, and more people suffering from HIV and AIDS. The difficult situation in the country had affected the most vulnerable the most, the children, and as a result, more and more children were ending up on the streets. But what surprised me when I came to Zimbabwe was not the despair of the population or their needs. It was rather the opposite. I was amazed by the beauty of this country and the kindness and how warm the people there were. The street children, despite having experienced more than any child should ever have to experience, they still had the biggest smiles in their faces. And then I realized something that I think is often forgotten about in the media today, that these children are just ordinary people. They are not perfect, but they are valuable, and they're just like you and me. During my time in Zimbabwe, it was particularly one incident that stands out. One of the days I was taken to a small concrete house in Zimbabwe's biggest township, Makoba. Here I met 15 children that were sharing 4 bedrooms and 1 bathroom. Here, they had all previously lived on the streets, and here they had 6 Zimbabweans who were working every day without a salary or any other form of income to assist these children. Every day was a struggle for them to cover for needs such as rentals, food, and school fees. But it was still a place of hope and promising children, because despite their problems, these children had the comfort and care from adults. They had a roof over their heads, and they had warm meals every day. One of the last days I was there, one of the people that worked at the orphanage, Happiness, came up to me and said that she had something that she wanted to show me if it was okay with me. And I said, okay, and I followed her into one of the bedrooms at the orphanage, where one of the boys were lying in the bed, and his face was swollen up to double its size, and his eyes were red after crying. And I asked what was wrong with this boy, and she told me that he had a toothache. I had a toothache myself before, but it never looked like that. So I asked her why she hadn't taken him to the doctor, and she said that they couldn't afford it. Then I asked her why they hadn't given him any painkillers or anything to treat him, and she said that they couldn't afford it. I then realized that something had to be done, and I was thinking about sending this, if I could pay to send this boy to the doctor. But I was on my journey around the world, and I realized if I had to pay for a long and expensive hospital stay, I might not be able to go to Asia after my stay in Zimbabwe. And it was a dilemma for a 19-year-old girl at the time. But I realized soon that I had no choice, so I told Happiness to take this boy to the doctor. And later that day, they both came back to the orphanage, and his tooth was pulled, and he already felt a lot better. And they gave me the bill for the hospital stay, and I nervously opened it, and it costed $20. $20 was the cost of getting rid of this boy's pain. And let me just say, I was still able to go to Asia after paying this expense. So it just shows that we don't always have to talk about like the thousands of dollars or the millions to make a change in someone's lives. After getting to know these children more and more, I realized that I could not just go back home to Norway and just forget about everything that I've seen there. So one of the last days I was there, I sat down with the leader of the orphanage, Question, and I told him that when I came back to Norway, I was going to start a Norwegian NGO to help them with their school fees. I came back home and I told my mom about my plans, and she just looked at me like I was crazy, and she asked me, do you have any idea how to start an organization? And I had to answer what the truth was, and that was that I had no idea. So I did what you usually do when you are in doubt, and I went on Google and I typed in how to start an organization. 2 months later, MCHP was a registered NGO by Norwegian law, and at this time there were 2 people on the board, my fellow volunteer Thomas Goldberg and I. We had 15 sponsors at the time, and our main aim was to cover for the children's school fees. And at this time this was a constant struggle because we started out with only 15 sponsors. I often get the question of how I got involved with this, or how I decided that I wanted to start an organization. And I think the answer is to just have a whole lot of passion and enthusiasm. And I think that is the key to succeed as a social entrepreneur. You will pick up the skills, the knowledge, and the experience as you go along, but it is the passion and enthusiasm that will get you through the highs and the lows.
Then I'll tell you a bit about the development that we had from there and to where we are today. Because looking back, it is kind of hard to believe that we're actually here today. 2 years ago, we had about 30 Norwegian sponsors, and we barely managed to pay for 15 children to go to school. And today, we have more than 150 sponsors from 8 different countries and on 3 different continents. And we're doing a lot more than just paying for 15 children. We're actually paying for 44 children to go to school, ranging from kindergarten to university level. And the board that consisted of 2 people 2 years ago has now doubled, and we're 4 people who on a daily basis are working for MCHP. And I think the biggest development though is, however, our priorities. Because as already mentioned, we started out by paying for the school fees, but as the organization has grown, so has the project. So during the past 2 years, we've been investing in different self-sustaining projects. We have supported more of the critical needs at the orphanage. And last year, October 2014, we actually purchased a new site in Zimbabwe, where we're going to build a new orphanage. And I would like to point out 3 factors that I think has been crucial for the development we had. And first, and definitely most importantly, are the sponsorship program. Because our sponsors are mainly friends, family, former volunteers, just normal people who donate whatever they can, everything from $5 to $70 each. And they are really the cornerstone of everything that we do. And these are the people that are making everything we do possible. And those are the people that we really need to thank for everything that we have accomplished. And secondly, I think what has been important is that we are trying to make each other good. We're trying to draw on the skills of the people around us. And when someone asks us if they can help, then we always ask them, what are you good at? Because we have people helping us with everything from administrative work, like accounting and printing of brochures, to people who are using their expertise and knowledge to help us make the right decision. Because we often bump into things that we don't know anything about, and we don't have any knowledge or expertise to say something about it. Like, for instance, when we were drilling a borehole last summer, how many meters do we go before we can expect to find water? We don't know. And when we're building a house, what kind of bricks should we use? And how do we know that those bricks are better than these ones? It's nothing that we don't know anything about. But that's when we have a lot of people around us that have all this knowledge and we can use it. And thirdly, we have started to have a bigger focus on fundraising events. And what we experienced from that is that the closer people actually are to the project, the easier it is for them to give. And my hometown is a great example because Nesbyen is a really, really small place in Norway with only 3,500 inhabitants. But they have shown a really great passion and engagement for the project. And in only 10 months, with 2 fundraising events, this is one of them, we actually got in more than $40,000 in this little town in Norway. But people are not only donating their money, they're also spending their time. They're knitting socks, they're baking cakes, they're selling tickets to the events. We even had a group of 7-year-old girls who they were walking around in the neighborhood selling flowers to fundraise for food for the children at the orphanage. And this means to Africa from and the names. So I think everyone, like my own hometown is a living proof that everyone can actually make a difference, and you don't have to be a big famous person to do it. And even though we have grown from being a small organization with barely enough funds to cover for 15 children, and now we have bought a new piece of land where we're going to build a new orphanage and a community center for 60 children. And even though we sent down more than double the amount last year than we did the year before, the organization still has the same ground rules. Because our goal has never been to grow into a big organization. We believe that it's better to have a group of small, not small people, but a small group of dedicated and passionate people, because then we think that you can do more. And as the organization is growing, so are the passion and the enthusiasm that we feel for the children. And I want to tell you a story about Tatenda. I first met him the first time I was in Zimbabwe, and we found him on the streets. He was run away from his parents, and he was 4 years old at this time. And my nephew in Norway was the same age. And it got me thinking that I would never let my nephew in Norway live on the street. And that's also why we keep fighting for getting these children off the street. Because they're people we care about. They're real people. They're not just someone you see on television.
It's no doubt that we've come a long way since we first started this project. And the question is then, what has made us successful? Or how can we have anything to contribute with in comparison to these big NGOs? And I want to highlight 3 things that I think that we might have been a little bit good at. Firstly, I think, like Lena already mentioned, that we have been good at listening to the needs of the people on the ground. What do they need? What works for them? And how can we compromise between what we have to do as a Norwegian NGO while at the same time respect the needs and the wishes of the people on the ground? I think there is a tendency among many NGOs today to focus on getting the most funds, raising as much money as possible, and reaching out to the biggest range of people. This has led many NGOs to focus on what it is that the sponsors want. What do they want to give money to, and what is it that captures their hearts? MCHP wants to turn this around, and we have wanted to make our organization a place where the needs of the people that we're actually trying to help are the focus, and not our sponsors, and then we'll build our work on that. Secondly, I think we have been good at promoting a truer image of the children at the orphanage and the people that we're trying to help. Too many organizations today are promoting the stereotypical image of Africa, with the starving children with big bellies and flies in their eyes. And just as an example, I was taking some pictures on the train on the way to London the other day, and I'm sure we've all seen these pictures everywhere put up. And yes, there are starving children in Zimbabwe, Africa, or like anywhere else in the world, but this is not the whole picture. We do not want to idealize the situation, but we want to show you the whole picture. We want to show you the joy, the happiness, and the never-ending love that we meet at the orphanage. But we also want to share our frustrations and our worries when we meet them. If there is a police raid against the street children, then we'll show it to you. Or if one of the children are struggling with his eyesight, then we'll show that to you. But also if there is a great party at the orphanage and all the children are running around like crazy, then we will show that to you as well. Thirdly, I think it is crucial that our work is building on an already existing organization in Zimbabwe. We have people on the ground who work for these children every single day, and they've done it for much longer than we have ourselves. They know the street children, and they know that the street children are often dividing the town up into territories after where the trash cans are, because that is where they would get their food. They also know that the street children usually won't come out until it's nighttime, because many of them are owned by legal minors. They also know that the children often lie about their story and their identity the first few times that we meet them, because they're scared and because they're not used to trusting anyone. We think that AIM charity should not be about Westerners sitting at a forum making decisions for people thousands of kilometers away. We think it should be about helping the people in need where they are. And through our work, we therefore want to give the voice back to the people in need, the people at the orphanage in our case, and make our decisions based on this.
And this is also a reason why another important aspect of our work is to try to make the orphanage self-sustainable, to try to make them not depending on us or anyone else to cover their expenses. But to make this possible, we need to think self-sustainability, we need to think long-term. And we need to have projects that are income generating. And we know that it will probably take longer than we expected to, and that we will probably need to pay for the orphanage expenses for quite a long time to come. But still, we need to think long-term already now. And as you might have figured out by now, we believe that the best way to help others are by giving them the opportunity to help themselves. Because they are the people that really know what they need, and things that we would recognize as a problem might not be a problem to them, or at least not the most crucial one. And in the end, they are the ones that we're trying to help, so they are the ones that we should listen to. And it's important for us to also get ideas and solutions from the orphanage itself, so that they can think about how to deal with certain situations. And with our assistance, the orphanage now has 2 main projects that are supposed to be income generating. And this is to make them self-sustainable in the long term. The first project is the vegetable garden. And it's, even though we have had some challenges, especially when it comes to water supply, you can see that it's been growing really, really big. And this is just a tiny, tiny little part of it. It's huge. And the other project we have is the chicken project. Here, the orphanage is buying chickens, and then they feed them till they reach a certain size, and then they slaughter them and sell them for a profit. And these 2 projects are not just benefiting the orphanage itself, but also the local community, because they are the buyers of these chickens and vegetables. And even though we always think long-term in everything we do, I think the biggest step towards self-sustainability was the purchase of a new line. And Melita will tell you more about it.
So how did we go from covering the school fees of 15 children to purchasing a new site? And how did we possibly think of purchasing a site in one of the countries that has the most contentious land reforms in the world? Well, let me try and explain it to you. As our work with the organization developed, it became more and more clear to us that the orphanage was in need of a long-term solution. The current place was and is still today way too small for them, and they are 28 children currently, sharing 14 beds, which means that they often have to sleep on turn. Also, there was no space to develop self-sustaining projects like the vegetable garden or the chicken project. But based on our challenges and our struggles to find a way forward, a decision had to be made, and it soon became clear to us what we had to do. We had to think bigger. We had to move out of the current orphanage and start fresh in a new place that would be better for the children long term. This is why we ended up buying a 5,000 square meter site in Zimbabwe's biggest township, Lukoba, the same township where they are currently located at. A moment I will never forget was when we were going to tell the staff at the orphanage about this new purchase. And together with the leader of the orphanage, we gathered the staff in one of the rooms, and it was quiet in the room when he told them that the site is now ours. And people were jumping and screaming, and there were tears of joy, and there were hugs, and everyone was so happy about the project that we've now started. And that is when we realized that this new orphanage was no longer a dream, it was actually now a plan. The potential for this new project is massive. Firstly, the children will be given more space and better facilities to recover after years on the streets. And secondly, it will be able to house a lot more children, which means that we will also be able to accommodate the street girls, because we're only able to take boys due to the limited space at the current orphanage. However, this new orphanage will also be so much more than just an orphanage. We also want to think sustainability in terms of the children and their futures. In a country with an unemployment rate of more than 80%, we have to be creative. We're therefore building classrooms and workshops where we're going to teach the children life skills and employable skills, And these classrooms and workshops will also be available for the local community to use, so it will also function as a community centre. As a result, we will also be able to integrate our children back into the local community after years of being labelled as criminals or outcasts on the streets. In the long run, we also want to put up a clinic here at this centre. As we speak, our lovely contractor is working every day together with his team to set up the perimeter wall around the new site, and every day we're looking at our emails for the latest developments, and it looks really good in our humble opinion. And when the perimeter wall is up, the next step will be to connect to the water network and the electricity network in the township, and then everything will be ready for us to set up the first children's home.
Like Anita said earlier, the reason why we started NCSP was our great passion for the street children, and that we wanted to make a difference. But without any prior knowledge or expertise, I think I'm speaking for both Anita and I when I'm saying that we had our fair share of challenges. And I promise you that we more than once have asked each other the question, why can't we just be a normal student? Going out on a Friday night instead of trying to figure out what kind of bricks we should use, or how to best deal with the situation when the police arrested all the street children and the homeless in Word. And I want to just briefly tell you about some of the challenges that we faced. Because firstly, we have to remember that this is Zimbabwe, and it's a country where corruption, social need, and political issues are extremely high. And this made us extra cautious when we... And the biggest reason for this was that we had some issues with one of the partners in Zimbabwe. And as a result, MCHP decided that it was time to think differently and to start new and fresh. So we purchased a new site, and then MCHP and the orphanage could keep doing what we are best at, making the decisions based on what the orphanage actually need and what they want. And then our role suddenly became more about slowing down and being reasonable, because it's easy to get a bit over-enthusiastic and to make decisions a bit too fast when you're suddenly seeing your big dream almost coming true. And then it's our role to just take a step back and try to think through the situation. And yeah, just very slowly. And the third thing that I would like to point out is probably the most difficult thing. Last summer we got a message saying that one of the orphans was not feeling well. He got a severe headache and was taken to the hospital. And sadly he passed away 2 days later. And this was probably the most painful thing that we ever had to deal with. And it was really hard on everyone. The children were devastated, the staff at the orphanage were devastated, and so were we. And we were pretty much in a shock for a really long time. But then when we finally started thinking clear again, then we realized that this was something that we hadn't really thought about. But now, because who thinks that young, healthy boys will get really sick? And now we realize that we had to think that direction, because it can happen to our children as well. So we decided that if any of the boys were ever to get sick again, then at least we would do whatever we could to give the orphanage the opportunity to deal with the situation in the best way. So that's why we created a medical fund, so that the orphanage always has emergency money available if they need them. And I guess you're thinking, if there's so many challenges, why are you doing this? And how do you pull through and overcome all the challenges? This is at least the questions we ask ourselves sometimes, because sometimes the challenges are very extreme and they just never seem to stop. But however, I think the reason why we never give up and why we never stop fighting for these children is the love and the passion that we have for them. They constantly believe that they deserve to have the same opportunity as any other kid, the same opportunity as you and me. And what keeps us going is the feeling we get when we receive an email from someone who wants to help, or when we get an email from all the children back in their school uniforms, super excited to go back to school. Or the times when we are in Zimbabwe ourselves and the children are running towards us and almost fighting to be the first one to welcome you back and to welcome you back home. I also celebrated Christmas in Zimbabwe last year, and I had bought a bag of oranges, which I was really supposed to give to the elephants to take some good pictures. But then when I saw the happiness and the joy the children showed when I came into the room with the bag of orange, then the elephants had to wait. But I think I've never ever seen someone being that happy and showing that much joy over an orange. And these are the small moments that keeps us going, and these are the small moments that really keeps us coming through all the challenges.
So the only thing that is left for us to do now is to answer the million-dollar question: how do we turn social need into social capital? And I wish the answer was more exciting, but for us the answer is that there is no recipe. There is no standardized solution that you can apply to any situation and expect a good outcome. What works in Cambodia might not work in Zimbabwe. What works in the capital Harare might not work in Gweru. What works in Makoba 19 might not work in Makoba 12. The most important tip of advice that we try and live by ourselves is therefore to listen to the people around you, and especially the people that you're trying to help. The range of charities and NGOs out there is massive, and they're all very focused on helping. They're all very focused on being there in the places of social need. This leads them to get so focused on the big picture, on helping all those starving children that are out there and all those in need, that they forget to see the small picture. They forget to see the individuals, and they forget to address the actual needs of the people. Midlands Children's Home Project is trying to work differently. Instead of starting with the big picture, we focus on the individuals. We rather want to see the people where they are and make the bigger picture as we go along. We realize our limitations, and we therefore know that we won't be able to feed all the starving children. We instead try to help Blessed, Tatenda, Cleopatra, Albert, Justin, and the rest of the boys at the orphanage. We start off asking them a simple question of where they see themselves in 10 years and how they think that they will achieve this. For us, charity work is not about fueling money into a project, but rather putting money into a project in the right manner. And more importantly than money, it is about making each other better. It is about making the staff better, it is about making the children better, and it is about making ourselves better. We believe that this is done by evaluating each situation as it occurs. And this way, we are able to adapt our framework to fit them, rather than them having to fit into our framework.
And I believe that the reason why we're standing here today is because we actually succeeded in making a difference. And that is a bold statement coming from a small-town girl in Norway, but I think we shouldn't be afraid to admit that what we do is actually working, and that we are actually making a difference. At the very end, I would like to quote Dalai Lama, who said, "If you think you are too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in your room." And we want to be these little mosquitoes. We want to be small, we want to stay small, But when we bite, we want to see big results. And in our own way, I think that we are actually making the world a better place, one child at a time.